I want to share with you an amazing story. Rav Shach was once being escorted out of a hospital by the head of the cardiology department unit. And as he was walking with this cardiologist, he felt a need to do some kiruv, to bring this man closer to Hashem. He was Jewish, he was just not observant. So he turns to him and he says, "Can I ask you a question?" He says, "Yeah, sure, you could ask me a question." He says, "Well, if you don't mind me asking, what car do you drive?" The man was a little bit taken aback. Why is the rabbi so curious what car I drive? What's the difference what car I drive? It's a rabbi, he's not into the physicality of this world. So he says, "Well, if you must know, I drive a Mercedes." He says, "Oh, you drive a Mercedes? And what was the car that you drove before this?" He says, "Before the Mercedes, I was driving also a Mercedes. And the car before that, the car that I drove before that was also a Mercedes." He says, "Why do you keep buying the same car?" He says, "Rabbi, I know you don't know too much about automobiles, but Mercedes always comes out with new features. They always look for a way to improve the car. They always somehow make it faster, more sleek, and they always somehow find a way to make it more attractive. So I always make sure to be updated and upgraded to make sure I get the best car, the best model out there." So he says, "So you're telling me the next model is going to be even better than the one you have now?" "Absolutely." So he says, "Can I ask you another question?" He says, "Yes." He says, "The heart. Is there anything that we can do to improve the heart?" He says, "Absolutely not." "What if we move the valve? Can we make it more functional? Can we make it perform even better? Put a piece inside there just to improve it?" He says, "There's nothing we could do to improve the heart." He says, why is that? The Mercedes were able to improve, but the heart we're not able to improve. So he says, "Well, I have to admit, it's because Mercedes was invented by people, and people are not perfect, and people are prone to error. And because they're not perfect, they're not going to be able to reach perfection. They're always going to try to find a different feature to improve. They always try to reach perfection, but they're not, because we're not perfect. But God is perfect, and everything that God does is perfect, and God always scores 100 on everything He does, and therefore, being that the heart was created by God, it's perfect." So Rav Shach says, "You're telling me that Mercedes, with their millions of dollar budget, thousands of employees from all over the globe, from all over the world, try to make the perfect car and they still can't make it with all their brains, and yet you're telling me God, He made it right the first time and the first try?" He said, "Yes." And that gave more of an appreciation towards God, towards Hashem. But I think the lesson to us is that God does not make mistakes. God always gets it right at every attempt. And if we have this attitude, we would realize that nothing in my life is a coincidence or an accident or a random roll of dice. It's not haphazard that I ended up with this spouse, or I ended up in this relationship, that I ended up in this situation, that I ended up with this child, that this soul landed out of all the places, landed right in my home. And now I have to learn how to deal with him, or I have to deal with her. That it's not a coincidence that I ended up with the parents that I ended up. This is also from Hashem. You have this attitude, you start to realize that I could handle this, that I could overcome this, that I could outgrow this. And now it's my turn to take God's gift and to maintain it, to take God's right decision and to make the most